Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Listening In with Seth. So if you're in talent acquisition, then you know how some roles are pretty easy to fill, right? Because of maybe the pay or just the type of work that it involves. It's just easier to fill. But what about those really hard to fill positions? Maybe the pay isn't as high as it should be or could be, or maybe it's just really physically demanding. So on today's call, we're going to talk about one of those really hard to fill roles and see how the recruiter handled it and what we can learn by going through that process. So we've got a 12-minute-ish call queued up. However, we're not going to listen to the full thing today because about 9 minutes of that call, there's not a whole lot we can learn from. It's a lot of screening questions, but there's about a 3-minute segment here that we can learn a lot from. So that's what we're going to tune into and then talk about afterwards on some of the action items we can take away from that. So I'll hit play, we'll listen to those 3 minutes, and then we'll go from there.
To be honest, it is the most physically demanding job we have in the company.
Yeah.
And it is not for everybody I talk to. In fact, most of the drivers I talk to were like, thanks, but no thanks. And I get it. I mean, it is a lot of very, very physical work. And the pay starts at about $23 an hour.
Well, what's like the hours?
You usually run about 6 in the morning to around 2:30 or 3:30 in the afternoon. You are guaranteed 40 hours a week. We don't guarantee overtime, but we do guarantee 40 hours a week. And most of our drivers are averaging around, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it like Monday through Friday for the most part, or?
It is. It's Monday through Friday.
Yeah, because I remember one trucking job I was working for, and it was supposed to be local, but I was like, one time I was right next to the border. I was like, whoa.
Well, I say this is local, but you might drive a couple of hours to deliver one of these units. You might drive down to Anniston. You might drive to Daphne. You could go any of a number of places with them.
Well, yeah, that's fine.
The thing is that you'll be home at night.
Yes, ma'am.
Unless something super weird happens, you'll be home every night, and also on the weekend.
Yes, ma'am. Do people typically? Would you say it's like a demanding job, but can an old man do it, or whatever? Because I can keep up with the old folks. If they can do it, I can pretty much do it.
Well, it depends. If it's an old person like me, no. If it's an old person like my Uncle Wimpy was, yes. My uncle could do anything. At 85 years old, the man was out there. In fact, he almost lost 2 of his thumbs one day building fences. He was helping somebody build a cyclone fence, and he got his hand caught in the pile driver thing. Anyway, so if it's somebody like him, yeah, but if it's somebody like me that's just fat and lazy, no.
All right. So I don't know how much of that story we can keep in. I hope all of it, but it's fairly amazing, especially if we can keep the names all legit in there. So let's talk about this. This is pretty important. So it's obvious that this is a pretty tough role to fill. And so the thing I want to talk about today is objections. Now we hear all about handling objections. One of the biggest keys of handling objections is to get out in front of it, meaning you address it before somebody else addresses it and before it even becomes an objection. So the recruiter here did some of that, okay? She says, and I'm looking at my notes here, this is the most physically demanding job in the company. And then she goes on to talk about how it's very physical and it's not for everybody. And I think that's okay, right? Is if you've got a tough job and you've spoken to a lot of people about it and you kind of know what their objections are going to be, let's get it out there. Let's talk about it. Where I think she misses the mark, though, is yes, let's get out ahead of the objection, but then let's address it. So what I mean by that is, yeah, fine. Let's say it's a really physically demanding job. What you could then say is, but we've got hundreds of people that do it and love it and been doing it for years. Let me tell you what it is about it that they love. But before we go into that piece of it, let me ask you this. What is it about your current role that you don't like? Because in this 12-minute phone call, nowhere in there do we talk about what's going on with what he's currently doing, because there's obviously something about his current role that he doesn't like. So if we can learn what that is, then we can begin to understand if this is a good fit for them. Those are the things we can tell them about the role. So let's break that down a little bit more and just put it kind of into steps, okay? So yes, get out in front of objections. You've got a tough role to fill. Hey, let's start with step number 1. List all those common objections out. This is for yourself. Step number 2 then is write out what you're gonna say. And that could be in the form of statements. It could be in the form of questions to ask to get out in front of it. For example, one of the questions you can ask is, what happens if you stay in the role that you're currently in? And they may say, well, I'll continue to not make the money that I want to make, or I'll continue to be miserable, or I'll continue to miss my family because I'm not seeing them very often, whatever the case may be. So step 1, list out the objections. Step 2, write out what you're going to say beforehand, right, to get out in front of it, whether it's a statement or a question. And then step number 3 is weave the solutions into the conversation naturally. So it can't feel forced. It's got to feel organic, that as we're going along, hey, I typically know these things are going to come up, so I'm just going to bring them up ahead of time with a plan. So follow those 3 steps. And if you've got a difficult role to fill, this will make it much easier to still be very transparent about what it's all about, but allow you to put your best foot forward to say, hey, here's the reasons why these individuals love it and continue to do it. So if you're anything like them, you'll also love it. So get out in front of those objections. And if you do, you'll find that those conversations tend to flow better and that you'll get better results. So appreciate you tuning in. We'll continue to break down calls and learn together on the best way to approach it to get those tough roles filled as quickly as possible. Thanks.